The Great Depression was a period of severe economic decline that gripped the world in the 1930s. It was a time when the global economy faced unprecedented challenges, and millions of people found themselves struggling to make ends meet. The impact of this economic downturn was felt in every corner of the globe, affecting both urban and rural communities alike. It was the longest, deepest, and most widespread depression of the 20th century. The sheer scale of the economic collapse was staggering, with countless businesses shuttering their doors and countless individuals losing their jobs. The unemployment rate soared to unprecedented heights, leaving families desperate and uncertain about their future. The Great Depression had devastating effects on both wealthy and poor nations. No country was spared from its reach, and the social fabric of many societies was torn apart. Families were forced to live in makeshift shantytowns, often referred to as Hoovervilles, named derisively after President Herbert Hoover, who was blamed for the economic woes. The Depression originated in the United States after a major fall in stock prices that began around September 4, 1929. This initial decline in stock prices set off a chain reaction of financial panic and economic turmoil that quickly spread across the globe and became worldwide news with the stock market crash of October 29, 1929, known as Black Tuesday. On this fateful day, the stock market plummeted, wiping out billions of dollars in wealth and plunging the world into economic chaos. The effects of Black Tuesday were felt far and wide, leading to a cascade of bank failures and business closures. The Great Depression had devastating effects in both the industrialized world and the developing world. International trade plunged, unemployment soared. Factories that once buzzed with activity fell silent, and the streets were filled with men and women desperately searching for work. The lack of employment opportunities led to widespread poverty and hunger. Personal income, tax revenue, profits, and prices dropped. The economic downturn affected every aspect of life, from the ability to buy basic necessities to the capacity of governments to provide essential services. Many people lost their homes and were forced to live in dire conditions. Cities around the world were hit hard, especially those dependent on heavy industry. The once thriving industrial centers became ghost towns, with factories standing idle and workers left with no means to support their families. Construction was virtually halted in many countries. The building projects that had once symbolized progress and growth were abandoned, leaving behind skeletal structures as stark reminders of the economic collapse. The Great Depression is a stark reminder of the fragility of economic prosperity. It serves as a powerful lesson about the importance of financial stability and the need for safeguards to prevent such a catastrophe from happening again. It is a lesson that we must never forget. The stories of those who lived through the Great Depression remind us of the resilience of the human spirit and the importance of community support during times of crisis. By remembering the past, we can better prepare for the future and ensure that such widespread suffering is never repeated. The causes of the Great Depression were complex and interconnected. A combination of factors, including overproduction, speculation, and a decline in consumer spending, contributed to the economic collapse. The stock market crash of 1929 was a major trigger of the Depression. The crash was caused by a speculative bubble in the stock market. Investors had been buying stocks on margin, hoping to make a quick profit.
When stock prices began to fall, many investors panicked and sold their shares. This led to a further decline in stock prices, which wiped out the savings of many investors. This loss of confidence spread throughout the economy.
The Great Depression unfolded over several years, with each year bringing new challenges and hardships. It was a time of unprecedented economic turmoil that affected millions of lives across the United States and around the world. 1929. The stock market crash of October 1929 marked the beginning of the Great Depression. This catastrophic event wiped out millions of investors and sent shockwaves through the financial system. The crash sent shockwaves through the American economy. Panic ensued as people rushed to withdraw their savings, leading to a banking crisis that further deepened the economic downturn. Banks failed, businesses closed, and millions of people lost their jobs. The ripple effects were felt in every sector of the economy, from manufacturing to agriculture. 1930 to 1933. The early years of the Depression were the most severe, The economy contracted sharply and the unemployment rate soared to unprecedented levels. Unemployment soared to 25%. Industrial production plummeted, factories shut down, and the once bustling industrial areas became ghost towns. Farmers faced falling crop prices and widespread foreclosures. The Dust Bowl compounded their misery, turning fertile lands into barren wastelands and forcing many to abandon their farms. 1933 to 1939. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal programs provided some relief, but the economy remained fragile. Roosevelt's policies aimed to restore confidence and provide jobs through public works projects. The New Deal introduced social welfare programs and government intervention in the economy. Programs like the Civilian Conservation Corps and the Works Progress Administration put millions to work, building infrastructure and providing essential services. 1939 to 1941. The outbreak of World War II in Europe led to increased demand for American goods, which helped to pull the United States out of the Great Depression. The war effort required massive production of military equipment and supplies. The war effort created jobs and boosted industrial production. Women entered the workforce in large numbers, taking on roles traditionally held by men, and the economy began to recover as factories hummed with activity once more. Section 4, Social Upheaval, the Human Cost of the Depression. The Great Depression had a profound impact on American society. Millions of people lost their jobs and homes. Families were forced to live in poverty. Hunger and homelessness became widespread problems.
The Depression also led to a decline in the standard of living for many Americans. People had less money to spend on food, clothing, and other necessities. Many families had to make do with less. They repaired old clothes, grew their own food, and went without luxuries.
The social fabric of America was strained by the Depression. There was an increase in crime and social unrest. People were desperate for work and for hope. The Great Depression left an indelible mark on the lives of those who lived through it.
Section 5, Political Earthquake, the New Deal and its discontents. The Great Depression led to a major political shift in the United States. The economic collapse of the 1930s was unprecedented, leaving millions of Americans unemployed and desperate. The stock market crash of 1929 had wiped out fortunes overnight, and banks were failing at an alarming rate. Bread lines and soup kitchens became common sights in cities across the country. The Republican Party, which had been in power during the 1920s, was blamed for the Depression. President Herbert Hoover's policies were seen as ineffective and out of touch with the needs of ordinary Americans. The public's frustration with the Republican leadership grew, leading to a demand for change. In 1932, Democrat Franklin D. Roosevelt was elected president on a promise to provide relief, recovery, and reform. His campaign resonated with voters who were eager for a new direction. Roosevelt's charismatic personality and optimistic vision for the future inspired hope in a nation that had been battered by years of economic hardship.
Roosevelt's New Deal programs fundamentally changed the role of government in American life. Through a series of innovative policies and initiatives, the federal government took on a more active role in the economy and in the lives of its citizens. This marked a significant departure from the laissez-faire approach that had characterized previous administrations. The New Deal was a series of programs and reforms enacted during the 1930s by President Franklin D. Roosevelt in response to the Great Depression. These programs aimed to address the immediate needs of the unemployed and to stimulate economic recovery. Major initiatives included the Works Progress Administration, WPA, which provided jobs for millions of Americans, and the Civilian Conservation Corps, CCC, which focused on environmental conservation projects. The programs focused on what historians call the 3 Rs: relief for the unemployed and poor, recovery of the economy to normal levels, and reform of the financial system to prevent a repeat depression. Relief efforts included direct aid to those in need, while recovery programs aimed to revitalize industries and create jobs. Financial reforms, such as the establishment of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC, sought to restore confidence in the banking system.
The New Deal was controversial, with some arguing that it went too far in expanding the role of government. Critics claimed that the programs were too costly and that they infringed on individual freedoms. Business leaders and conservative politicians were particularly vocal in their opposition, fearing that the New Deal would lead to socialism. However, it also provided crucial assistance to millions of Americans during a time of great need. The New Deal's legacy is complex, but it undeniably helped to alleviate some of the worst effects of the Great Depression. By providing jobs, financial security, and hope, the New Deal played a key role in the nation's recovery and reshaped the relationship between the government and its citizens. Section 6: The Arsenal of Democracy, War and Economic Recovery. While the New Deal provided some relief to the struggling economy, it was World War II that ultimately brought an end to the Great Depression in the United States. The war effort created millions of jobs in factories and shipyards across the nation. The demand for war materials boosted industrial production to unprecedented levels. The government's wartime spending helped to stimulate the economy and put many people back to work. The war also had a profound impact on American society as a whole. It led to greater opportunities for women and minorities in the workforce. It also fostered a sense of national unity and shared purpose. Section 7: The New Deal's Legacy, Social Security and Beyond. The Great Depression had a lasting impact on American society and politics. It led to the creation of many government programs and institutions that are still with us today. One of the most significant legacies of the New Deal is Social Security.
Social Security is a federal program that provides retirement, disability, and survivor benefits to eligible Americans. It was created in 1935 as part of President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal. The Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, was also created in response to the stock market crash of 1929. The SEC is a federal agency that regulates the securities industry and protects investors.
These programs and institutions reflect the belief, which gained widespread acceptance during the Great Depression, that the government has a responsibility to provide a safety net for its citizens.